Oh,
Sam, can you talk and let me see if I can hear you now? No? Okay. Well, I'm gonna admit her and then yeah.
hi, Sunny.
Hi,
Mm.
Alka. Thank you so much. It's so good to see you.
Oh, nice to see you guys too. This is lovely.
Yeah, we're
Wow.
super,
Where's
super
everybody
excited.
joining in from?
I'm in Burlington, Ontario, so close to Toronto.
Okay.
I'm in
Everyone is,
Woodbridge, Ontario. We're all Ontario based.
Oh, you're all Ontario.
we're
Well,
all in the Toronto area.
and Ontario is a big city, a big province,
It
right?
is huge. Yes, yes. So this is a
So,
local book club. It's like we meet in person, so everyone is kind of in the area. Yeah.
okay. So, mostly you guys meet in person. Is that right?
We try to do for every book, we pick one book a month and we try to do one Zoom and one in person, but doesn't always happen. Sometimes it's just in person. But so far we've done in person for every book, which is amazing.
Wow. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I'm so glad to see you all here. I think you're supposed to have more people joining. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. There's supposed to be at least three more, and
Okay.
everyone is kind of, a couple of them message on their way from work, just reaching, and we'll hop on as soon as we can. It's a weekday, so
Yeah.
hopefully soon, but we can get started. If it's being recorded anyway, so if you're
Sure.
okay with it, we'll just jump right into it.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So let me first introduce Alka. I am so, so grateful. Thank you so much. I was hesitating to reach out to you, and then I tagged you, and you reached out, and I said, "Oh my gosh." And I sent it in the group. I'm like, "Look, I just got a message from Alka."
You did it while you were on vacation, no? I think
Yeah, yeah.
it's yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So after 30 years in advertising and marketing, Alka Joshi turned to full-time writing with her New York Times bestseller and Reese Witherspoon pick, The Henna Artist, the one that we just read. The novel was longlisted for the Center for Fiction First Novel Prize, translated into 30 languages, and is now in development as a feature film.
Hmm.
She followed with two sequels, and some of us have read a couple of them: The Secret Keeper of Jaipur and The Perfumist of Paris, before releasing 6 Days in Bombay. Her fifth novel, Daughters of the Pink City, will appear on shelves March 2nd, 2027. Forbes selected Alka for their 50 over 50 list in 2023. Born in India, Alka came to the US at 9 and earned a BA from Stanford University and an MFA from California College of the Arts. Welcome to the book club, Alka. Thank you
Ah,
so
thank you.
much.
Thank you so much. This is so lovely to be with all of you guys. By the way, are you guys able to breathe in Ontario? Are the wildfires affecting you guys at all?
It's much better now, but last week, like 3 or 4 days were really bad. We're having a little bit of a cold front, cold in the sense a little chill, which has helped the smoke to kind of rise. So it's much better where we are now. Yeah, we had
Okay.
some really bad days though.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. Well, as you guys know, so back in the 60s, when we first came to the United States, we came because my father was getting a doctorate in civil engineering. And so we landed in Iowa at Iowa State University, where he was getting that PhD. And, it was a shock to all of us what America was like, because neither did we know very much about America, and neither did Americans know very much about India. So we were all a little bit at a loss, I think. We expected every American was going to be rich. We thought that they all had two cars. We thought that, they all lived in these huge houses. And it turns out, no. They all thought all Indians are poor. They all thought that all Indians are, that India was overpopulated and it was just teeming with too many people, and how irresponsible of a country to allow that to happen. They thought India was dirty and it was hot, and that, there were, um, There like it wasn't a place that they thought they would ever want to go. And in the 60s was when the only people who visited India were the druggies, the ones who were looking for free marijuana. And they had all heard about bhang. And so they wanted to, go figure out what bhang was all about and all of that. So it was a very different kind of environment than probably what it is today, where people know a lot more about India. We have a lot more Indian Americans who have become prominent in the United States. But there's still a lot of confusion about what India is about. It's a large and very complex country. Um, and what happened was that in the 60s, when I came, it was all about assimilation. It wasn't about preserve your culture. It was all about how quickly you can become an American in this culture. Because that was the way to not be called out in class for being different, for being able to be accepted in society and so on. So I remember coming home and saying to my mother, Mom, I don't want to eat Indian food anymore because the kids in school don't want to sit next to me. They say that I smell funny. Nobody will sit next to me on the bus because my clothes are wrong and I need to wear jeans and t-shirts like the other kids are. And I also said, I don't want to speak Hindi at home because I have this weird accent that the kids make fun of. And the teacher is always correcting the way that I say schedule or the way I say program or something. And my mother was a little bewildered, but she wanted her kids to fit in like all mothers do. So she said, okay, fine. And so I went for a period of about 4 decades where I never came back to India. My brothers and I just said, no, we don't want to go. We don't want to have anything to do with India. It's not our home anymore. This is our home. And I think my father was a little less concerned because, first he was getting his PhD, then he had a job, then we were moving from one city to another. He was always busy with work. And I don't think he really realized how disconnected we were becoming from our culture. So in 2008, I was running my own advertising and marketing agency here in California. And my younger brother had this sort of epiphany and said, I think I need to get reconnected with my culture. So he bought a flat in Jaipur, which is all of our extended family still lives in Jaipur. And it's also a city where we used to live at one point. And he said, you guys, any of you want to come and visit this flat? I have had it decorated, and it was just a square box when he bought it. It was a new building, and he said, I would really like for you guys to come and hang out here. And my mother said to me, she said, I'm in my 70s. I would really like to go visit, and if you will come with me, Elka, then that would be, um, very safe for me because she had some health issues, recurring health issues, where she really needed me to take her to doctors and so on. And by her 70s, my mother was living with my husband and me because of that very reason. So I said, okay, Mom, I will do that. Now, we started in 2008. We made a couple of trips. And then in 2009, in 2008, there was a huge mortgage crisis. And what the mortgage crisis did was it affected the global economy, and the global economy affected my business. And so all of a sudden, my business went down. A lot of my clients said we can no longer sustain the budgets that we had, or we're losing our staff altogether, or whatever the reason was. But my budgets were being cut, cut, cut. So I thought, well, in this country, I've been through two recessions in my own business, and it takes about 2 years for our country to recover from a recession. So my business will be back in 2 years. I just don't know what to do with myself for 2 years because I like to stay busy. And my husband had always said, Honey, I love the stories you tell me about India. He had never been to India. He's not Indian himself. And he said, I would really, encourage you to write these stories down because Jhumpa Lahiri doesn't write about these stories. And, Salman Rushdie doesn't write about these stories. You should write about them. So in 2009, I enrolled in a master's program that would take about 2 years. And after those 2 years, I was supposed to learn how to write a novel. I would have a novel in my hands as my thesis. So I thought, okay, this is great. And at the same time, I'm taking my mother back and forth to India. And so she suggested, as long as you are having these semesters with all of these breaks in between, you get your spring break, you get a holiday break, and all of that. She said, why don't you take me to India during those times? And then you can leave me there for a couple of months at the flat and come back and get me, when your semester is done because I'm familiar enough now with the place and I'd like to stay there a little bit longer. And if I need to, I can call on our family, to help me out. So I said, okay. So then for the next couple of years, while I went through my MFA program, my mother and I made that trip, I think like two more times, three more times. And while I was in India with her, she said, let me show you why I love India and why I never would have actually moved to the United States. That was all your father's decision. It had nothing to do with me. And so she took me to the sari bazaars and the jewelry bazaars and the fruit and vegetable markets. And she had me eating chaat for the first time in all these years. And she showed me so much of, the color and the vibrancy of India. And she said, this is something that I wish I could have connected you with, but my dad is a patriarch, and he very much conducted our family life the way that he was raised, which is that he made all the decisions about the houses we would live in, cars we would buy, where we would all go to school. And he was, of course, determined that we would all go to Ivy League schools. And that is what ended up happening because dad is a very determined guy. And so I think that my mother never really had a voice in that relationship. So I started to ask her, Mom, what was it like when you were first married? When you were in India as an 18-year-old, what was life like for you? And she said, well, what I wanted was to go to college, but my father said, no, it's time for you to get married. You have five other sisters behind you, and we all need to get them married in order. So we need to get you married first. And we have found this wonderful, young, promising engineer for you. He works for the state of Rajasthan. He's building roads and dams and bridges like all of the young engineers in India at this time in the 50s. And we really think that he's the right partner for you. So they get married, and within 4 years, my mother has three kids. We were all born in Jodhpur. And then, my mother's life is just never her own once she is married. It's always belongs to my dad. My dad, is ruling the family. And so I said, Mom, so I don't understand. You had such a restricted life, and yet you have always raised me to be so independent. I mean, from the time we came to the United States, she started telling me things like, you're going to choose your own partner in life. You're going to decide where you want to go to school. You're going to decide what kind of degree you want in life, where you want to study. All of these decisions would be yours. Whether you want children will be your decision. She said, I never got to decide whether I wanted children. We were just expected to have kids, and so we had kids. And so she said, I just want you to be able to live a very independent life. And when I was 18 and went away to college, I had a boyfriend for the first time. And I came home and I told my mom about it. And my mom said, okay, I'm making an appointment tomorrow to go to the doctors, and we're going to get you some birth control pills because you're going to want to experiment. And the best way to experiment is to make sure that you don't get pregnant. And I need to make sure that you don't get pregnant before you have a career, before you have a life of your own, because I want you to be able to make choices that I didn't have. And I thought, what a brave woman my mother is without even telling my dad. She made a lot of permissions possible for my brothers and me, but she had to do it in a very secret, underhanded way because my dad would never have allowed those things. And so I said, Mom, now that I'm learning to write a novel, what if I made my main character look just like you? But then that main character named Lakshmi will get to do all the things that you didn't get to do in your life. So she will get to decide that she wants to leave her marriage. She will get to decide whether she wants children of her own and find a way to not have them if that's what she wants. And I also want her to have a life where she gets to have a career, even without a lot of higher education. What could she have been doing? And my mom said, well, we all have Mandy on our hands and we all know what that's like. So I think she could probably become a Mandy, artist. And I said, so what, describe your Mandy to me if I'm going to describe this woman putting that on other people's bodies. She said, oh, honey, when I was married in 1955, it was very crude. It was just dots and dashes and, just like lines on our hands. It wasn't anything fancy the way that they have it now. And so I that gave me the idea that Lakshmi, if Lakshmi did henna that was far more intricate than what anybody else was doing at the time, then maybe that would be, considered something that could garner her 10 times what everyone else is earning. And then I thought, okay, what if um, she's also doing something else to supplement her income. And I realized that my mother always had these hand-me-down recipes from her mother or her grandmother, like making buttermilk with pepper and some salt, if we had digestive issues and so on. And so I thought, well, what if Lakshmi then tries to feed these ladies without their knowledge, really, that she's feeding them the kinds of spices and ingredients that they would need to help with whatever ailments they have. So that's how Lakshmi's whole career trajectory was born. And so then I thought, okay, where am I going to start this story? And I thought, well, what if we're already in the process of Lakshmi's rebirth and reinvention? She's already in Jaipur. She's already doing all of these things, but where did she come from and how did she happen to leave her husband? So then I had to work backwards from there to create a backstory for Lakshmi. And of course, as you know, Hari is, not my dad. My dad was never physically abusive. I think he was emotionally abusive in the way that he just sort of ignored my mother's wishes. But I don't think he was, he was never physically abusive or anything like that. And of course, my father is a very learned man, unlike Hari. And so, but I had to invent Hari in order to give Lakshmi a reason to leave. Because as you know, in the 1950s, women didn't leave their husbands in India. They had to stick it out in that marriage, no matter how awful it was. And and then, I had to make it so threatening to her life that she would actually be compelled to leave. So this is how that whole village sort of idea was invented. And then I thought, well, then who would have taught her all of those home remedies that she knows about? Well, what if Hari happened to have a mother who was very kind to her? And that actually kept Lakshmi in place for 2 years in that marriage. So that's how that whole idea came about. And then, I started building the story from there. And much like my husband had always said, he said, Alka, when we stand in line at the movies, when we stand in line at the grocery store, you're always making up stories about people in line. I know that you can tell stories. And when I started writing, when I received my first assignment in the master's program, I could just write. I never had what you call a writer's block. I could just always come up with ideas. There was a no-brainer. And I think some of that had to do with the fact that I had been in advertising for so long. And when you're creating an ad campaign, you have to come up with 100 ideas before you settle on a couple that you're going to show the client. And then the client's going to have you revise, revise, revise. So I had already gone through a lot of the same processes that you have to go through as a writer. In the master's program, I had thesis advisors and I had a mentor. And so I had my thesis as my MFA and as the henna artist, the beginnings of the henna artist. And I had already gone through several revisions with my mentor and my thesis advisors on that. Then, right after that, my mother started having some serious problems, medical problems. And within 8 months, she was gone. And that happened very quickly and very unexpectedly. So I stopped writing altogether. Number one, because I was busy taking her to doctors and hospitals and hospice, but also because, it just writing about Lakshmi just reminded me of my mother, and I didn't want to be reminded. So I gave up on that. Well, my mentor called me about a year later, and she says, "What's happening with your novel?" And I explained what happened to my mom, and she said, "Well, what if I work with you on it? I think you still have some things that you need to work on, but maybe we could help you progress a little bit further." So I worked with her. I hired her to work with me because I didn't want to take advantage of her generosity. And so I hired her for the next year and a half. We went through several more revisions of the novel. And then finally, she sent it off to her agent, and her agent called me from New York and said, "I have a novel in front of me that Anita Amirazvani has sent me. I love it, and I would like to work with you on it." And I thought very naively that I was going to get published immediately because that's the way it happened in the movies. You write a novel, all of a sudden you're at a bookstore and you're signing books, and everybody loves you, and your whole world is different. Well, so I said, "Oh my God, Emma, am I going to get published?" And she said, "Well, not right away because you have a lot of work to do on this novel." I said, "Hey, you just told me that you love my novel." She said, "Yes, I think that you're a good storyteller and Lakshmi is a very compelling character, but we need to work on refining this story so that a publisher will buy it because you have an opportunity here, but you also have a huge challenge." I said, "What's that?" She said, "Well, number one, um, it is very hard to get a book published that is 99% other people. So it's not, we don't have a bunch of Americans in here. We have a bunch of other people in here." And she said, the other thing about the publishing world is they don't like to take a chance on, number one, an unknown author. You've never written a short story. You've never written an article for the New York Times. You've never published anything in your life other than your advertising campaigns, and those don't count. So you're an unknown entity, and they don't like to take a chance on unknown entities unless they think that that novel is going to be a bestseller. And right now, your novel is not a bestseller. So I said, "Okay, well, what do you think?" That really deflated me. But then I said, "Well, what do you think needs to happen?" She said, "Well, listen, I would start with this." And then she proceeded to tell me over the next 3 years, over another 10 revisions of the novel, what she thought I should be refining or doing differently. We cut out 140 pages out of the novel. We made Lakshmi the main character. We took out all of these scenes with Radha and Malik, and we changed the ending and so on. And then she said, "I don't like your epilogue. You're going to have to change that. You're letting people know what's happening to these people 10 years down the line. We don't need to know that. We just need to know where Lakshmi's going to end up." So we worked on that together. And then at the end of 3 years, I said, Emma, I was working on this story for 4 years before you even got started. So at this point, I've been working on it for 7 years. I really think that you need to send it off to a publisher because what am I doing all this for if we don't know that anybody's interested? She said, "It doesn't work like that in the publishing world. You don't get a second chance at this. You send this novel in one time, everybody gets it. And then somebody, or hopefully a couple of somebodies, are going to say they are interested in publishing this novel and working with you." And she said, "If it's not ready yet as a bestseller, we're not going to get one person saying that, and we're not going to get a chance to resubmit. That's not how the publishing world works in the larger publishing world, which is the big five. That's HarperCollins, Penguin Random House, Hachette, Macmillan, and Simon and Schuster. Those are the big five. That's it. That's all you get." So I said, okay. And so I said, what more do you want me to do then? And she said, okay, now you need to hire some professional editors. I have taken you as far as an agent can take you, but I'm not a professional editor. You need to talk to professional editors at this point. So I said, oh my God, I still have to do more revisions. And she said, if they tell you, yes, you will have to do more revisions. So I was really reluctant. I was really angry and I didn't want to do it. But I said, all right, then give me a list. So she gave me a list of all of these professional editors. And she said, now you're going to have to pay them. All right. I've been working with you gratis because my job as an agent is not paid until I sell this book to a publisher. And by the way, if you're writing anything and an agent asks you to pay them before they sell it to a publisher, please, they're not a real agent because a real agent does not get paid their 15 to 20% until they actually sell it. So, okay, I called the first person on her list and I said, here's my novel and I'm really excited about it. And uh, I said, how much will it cost? And she said, okay, $5,000. So I paid her $5,000. I sent her my manuscript. I said, okay, please tell me what I can fix in this novel. Well, she proceeded to do that over 10 pages. And I said, no. No, 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 no. I am looking for an editor who's going to tell me I'm ready to publish right now because I have already been through years and years and years, and I do not want anybody to tell me I have more work to do on this novel. So I thought, okay, I'm going to call somebody else on the list. So I wrote to somebody else. She said, okay, send me your manuscript. I did. And then she proceeded to give me 18 pages of commentary after I sent her the $5,000. And I, at that point, had just had it because I said, no, this is ridiculous. This is obviously some kind of a scam that they, have all of these authors go through. No wonder nobody gets published. There's no way anybody can ever get published if you're going to make them jump through all these hoops and pay them all this money. And I gave up. I really never intended to return to the henna artist again. Um, I decided to just keep on doing my marketing and advertising because as soon as the recession was over, I was getting calls back from my clients saying, hey, we'd like to continue that project, or we have money now. We'd like to do this new project and whatnot. I thought, you know what? I'm making money. I don't need to be doing this where I'm constantly getting rejected from people even before the publisher gets here. So I decided, okay, I put the novel away in my desk drawer. A year later, I had a client who needed something from me. I was looking for an example of what I could provide for them, and I ran across this big, thick stack of papers, and that was my novel. And I had attached to it all of the different comments from the two editors. And I started to read the comments. And I started to realize, hey, you know what? Well, first of all, if I don't get this novel published, then I have spent all these years working on something that is never going to see the light of day, and people will not get to see this alternate life of independence that I created for my mother. And then secondly, um, this whole idea of not making any more changes didn't make very much sense when I started to actually read their comments a year after my heart was broken. And a year after my heart was broken, I could actually hear what they were trying to say. And it wasn't big stuff. It was just a little tweak here and a little, brush stroke there. It wasn't anything major. And I thought, okay, well, I think I can make these changes. I made the changes. I sent them all back to Emma. And I said, Emma, I don't know if you remember me or not, because we haven't communicated in over 2 years. But listen, it's been 9 years since I first started working on this project. And I have done everything that you asked me to. I've made all the changes you asked me to. I have contacted those editors. I paid them. I did all of this work. Now I really need you to send it off to a publisher, or I'm done. Like, that's it. I'm not doing anything more, or I'm going to get myself a new agent. She said, all right, just hang on to your horses. Fine, I'll send it off. So she sent it off, and we got a contract with HarperCollins right away. All right, so now I had a new editor named Kathy, and the contract states that in 18 months I will see this book on shelves of libraries and bookstores, and it'll be at Amazon and Costco and Walmart and everything. But that's not going to happen until we I get through another round of edits with my new editor, Kathy. And that's going to take 12 months. So for the next 12 months, I work with Kathy. Luckily, she has been to India. She understands what I'm trying to say in the book. She makes absolutely amazing suggestions as an editor. And I end up then finishing up this book, all the edits at the end of a year. And she says, "We're done. I'm sending this off to get it typeset and then printed." That process will take about 6 more months. During that time, Malik is in my head, and I start thinking about Malik's story. And Malik says, so many of those 180 or 140 pages that got cut out of the novel had me in them. You could write a whole story just about me. You don't even have to think about it. And so he was constantly in my head. I couldn't get him out of my head. So I said, okay, okay, fine. So I sat down to write it. Immediately, I write 20 pages of this novel. And I sent it off to my agent because she wanted to see it. She sent it off to Kathy, the editor, and Kathy bought the second novel right away before the first novel is even off to the printers. So it was like one of those serendipitous moments that like hardly ever happens. My agent said this never happens for a debut novelist. If you're an established author, yes, they start giving you a 2 book contract, 3 book contracts, and everything, but this is really unusual. So then I start writing The Secret Keeper of Jaipur. And eventually, my release date for the Henna Artist comes up, and that was March the 10th, 2020. On March the 11th, 2020, the CDC said, "We have a huge global pandemic on our hands, and we need to close down the bookstores, close down the libraries, close down Amazon, close down all of these places that have Alka's books." So I was like, oh my God, I don't believe this. I just spent 10 and a half years working on a novel that nobody is ever going to read. Luckily, what happens before the book is actually released is there are pre-orders. Pre-orders come from bookstores and libraries and also individuals like you. And that first week that the book is released, those pre-orders go out. They're shipped out. And they count for thousands and thousands of books if we had they go out to all the reviewers, all the book reviewers, all the Instagrammers and everybody. And if they love the book, they'll start talking about it, right? And that's what happened with the henna artist. And so by the time the pandemic rolled around, a lot of people had copies of the novel, or they had a digital copy or an ebook copy that they could easily get from Amazon or any of the online suppliers, because those at least were not associated with COVID. And so finally, I reach out on social media and I said, listen, if you've got a copy of my book somewhere and you have a book club, and you've got, I don't care if you have 2 people or, 3 cats or a dog, I would really like to talk to you about my book because I've been working on it for a really long time. And so people started responding. So to date, I've done about 1,250 book clubs on Zoom all around the world. It's been a really wonderful way to get to know people all around the world. And of course, when the floodgates opened after COVID, I was able to travel all around the world to talk about the books. And it's been a remarkable journey. And yes, now we are on to the 5th book, which, as it turns out, it has a lot to do with all the research I did for the courtesans of Agra and the North India. And many of them were also in Jaipur. And so this next one, Daughters of the Pink City, is all about a 16-year-old girl in 1920s Jaipur who wants to learn Kathak, which is, of course, as you all know, right, the dance, the classical dance of the courtesans. And before it was the realm of the courtesans, it was in the realm of the temple dancers and the women who lived and danced in the temples. And men, male troops of dancers, would take that dance and go around to villages and perform it. And eventually, what happened is that in the 7th century, when the Mughals invaded India, they tore down a lot of the temples So the courtesans were homeless and they built their beautiful palaces that still exist today. And the courtesans, the dancers moved to the palaces, and this is why they're called courtesans because they were in the royal courts. And so then it became sort of their thing. And the Persian inspired parts of Kathak dancing, which are the very expressive gestures and expressions on the face, and the beautiful jewelry and the costumes and everything. That was a very Persian inspired part of the dance, whereas the temple dancers used to be very simple. And so that also became the realm of the courtesans. And what happened is that in 1857, I don't know if you guys have heard about the Sepoy Mutiny, and that was the first big movement in India to try to get rid of the British. Well, it turns out that the courtesans were the ones who financed that revolution. And when the British found out, and of course, that was the revolution that led to the East India Company going out of power and the British government taking over from there. The British government was very Victorian and, of course, very repressive in their culture. They wore collars up to here, and they were, clothed all the way to their wrists. Women showing ankles were considered risque. So when the British government found out what the courtesans did and how they danced and what they wore when they danced, they said, well, that's just reprehensible. There is no respectable young woman who should be doing that. So for a period of 90 years, from 1857 to 1947, it was considered louche for any young girl or woman in India to dance this classical dance. The British really didn't understand that it was a devotional dance. They didn't understand that it was really telling stories from the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and so on. And so it became a sort of a way to take away part of the Indian culture that then India reclaimed after independence. So now you'll see Kathak all over the world being performed and young women dancing it. But I don't know if you knew that it was verboten for a period of 90 years. And when it was, a young girl who wanted to dance that way would have been ousted from her family. It was, very much of a no-no. So in the Daughters of the Pink City, we have a 16-year-old girl, Deepa, and she really wants to learn this dance, but how is she ever going to find anybody to teach her? And how can she do all of this in secret without anybody finding out? So that's what that book is about. Okay, so you guys, you have questions for me? Please feel free to ask.
Oh my gosh. I loved you are a great storyteller. I mean, just hearing you, I was like, okay, what happens next? What happens next? Is this gonna get published? I know it's gonna get published, but what's going on? You are a great storyteller.
Oh, thank you.
So before Bonita has a question, but before that, I'll ask a question. I just do want to mention, so my mom is from Kota, Rajasthan. So my whole childhood, we spent our summer vacations in Kota and we would go to Jaipur all the time. So very close to my heart. And my honeymoon was in Jaipur. So
Oh,
yeah, so Jaipur is very close to my heart. I just want to mention that. My question is, so 10 and a half years and then COVID happened and all that. Did you think it would become such a big success?
no,
Number one.
no.
And when it did, how did that feel?
I think my first hint that it was going to be, a book that the publisher was going to stand behind was when I got the contract. Now, historically, you guys, the advances for female authors are going to be, and even for a lot of male authors, but male authors generally get paid more than female authors do. It's just a cultural bias and a gender bias within the industry. But the advances could be anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000. That's all. I don't know if you guys, thought it was going to be more than that because that's generally uh, what, in the movies, it always seems like it's going to change their lives. But no, advances are generally very modest, especially we're looking at debut authors. Okay. My contract came in, and I didn't really know it. I didn't know any of this stuff before I got a contract. I had no idea what people made. So I have a backdoor neighbor here who used to work in the publishing industry. So I went over to her. I said, Heather, can you please look at my contract? I've never seen anything like this before. It's like 30 pages long, and it has different percentages for hardcover, paperback, ebook, audiobook, movie rights, stage rights, all of these things that I don't know anything about. Can you please look this over? And so she did, and she goes, wow. She said, Alka, this is an amazing contract for a debut author. So that was the first sort of hint that I had that it was something really wanted by the publisher.
Mhm.
The second hint I had was that in between the time that Kathy and I were working on it and she sent it off to the printer, HarperCollins invited me to their offices in New York and their headquarters in Toronto. So I went. And I remember in Toronto, we were on the 42nd floor of this downtown building, and it was just beautiful. I mean, you could just see everything all around, it's just gorgeous. And we were in the conference room, and all the staffers came into the conference room, lined the conference room. They had a cake in the middle with which had the henna artist book cover on the top, and they handed out flutes of champagne to everyone. And they got around to me, and I don't drink, not for any religious reasons. It just doesn't make me feel good, so I don't drink. So I said, no, thank you, I don't drink. And I could feel the whole room deflated. And because I was like, oh my God. I said, okay, wrong answer. I will take a champagne flute. So then they gave it to me, and everybody's all happy. And then they did a toast. I mean, they did it so amazingly. They welcomed me as a debut author, like debut authors do not get welcomed. When I walked into the lobby, every single let's see, they had a lot of shelves, in the lobby. Every single shelf was the henna artist's, cover. It was all, splashed with all the covers and everything. And I thought, oh my God, I think they really like this book. So, and then I think, Reese Witherspoon's people called, I think a couple of months after the book had been out. And that was, of course, the biggest endorsement ever because, the celebrities like her receive the pre-ordered books, right? And so they have scouts all over um, who are looking for the new IP, their intellectual property that they may want to star in or produce or direct or whatever it is they want to do with it, make a stage play out of it. And so she has her own scouts who look for books for her. And they gave her the henna artist, and she absolutely loved it. So I think those are the ways in which I knew it was going to be a big book. And then, of course, it makes the New York Times bestseller list, which is a huge endorsement as well. I still get letters. I get hundreds of letters every month, and it's about people who are reading the henna artist for the first time, and they can relate to it. It doesn't matter if they live in Russia, if they live in Bulgaria, if they live in Rio, if they live in Thailand. They're writing to me all the time about how even though this is taking place in India, that this is a character, Lakshmi is a character they can relate to. And they can even relate to Lakshmi being, from their mother's sort of generation or from their grandmother's generation. They can completely understand what her life would have been like. So I think that is also a good indicator to me. Okay, now that was one part of your question. Did you have another part of your question?
No, that was it. I did say how did it feel, but I think you did answer that with the whole champagne thing.
Yeah. Okay, Bonita.
Hi, Alka. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. It's so wonderful to hear what goes on behind the book. And that was amazing to hear that. I guess what fascinated me was the way you've described your writing process, because most of us, oh, well, wrong. Some of us here we've immigrated as adults. And usually someone like us, or at least me, I can tell from the first page whether the author, if they have an Indian name, has grown up in India or has grown up somewhere else. And with your book, your lived experience of being in Jaipur, your mom, your family, they all came through within the first five, like within about 5 minutes. And then there was no, it was amazing. And I thought, oh my God, somebody's for a change actually talked about all the things I love about India, not just the gritty stuff and the whining and the, oh, it's so terrible. And yes, we all know it's terrible and it's still terrible. So, there you go. But then there was these sudden small bits, which I appreciate now was your editor, because I was like, hang on, this doesn't sit with the first generation. So, but what's amazing is that the editing has made your book accessible to so many more people. And I think that's just wonderful. So no, I don't have a question. It's just a comment. I absolutely loved it. I bought your book going into a flight. I came out of the flight and went straight to the bookshop to ask for more. So,
Thank you.
Absolutely. So looking
Thank
forward to
you.
your next one.
And I think, one of my biggest concerns was that, readers from the South Asia would think, well, she doesn't live here. She can't possibly write a book about us. This is going to be crap. And so I was so meticulous about all my research. Every time we went to Jaipur, I would talk to shopkeepers, I would talk to doctors and teachers. And I went to the Maharani school and sat down with the principal and talked to her for 3 hours. And I did all this research on the Maharani, Gayatri Devi, and what else did I do? Of course, my dad has an encyclopedic knowledge. He is one of those, what is it called? Photographic memory. So he remembers everything he has ever read. And of course, since he was born in 1932, he remembers pre-independence, during independence, post-independence. And he was one of those who answered Nehru's call for engineers. And that's why he became an engineer, to help rebuild India's infrastructure. So much of that history is really lived by my family. And I think that I wanted very much for nobody to be able to say to me, hey, this doesn't feel genuine. This doesn't feel like a real thing. I don't like this book. And then, secondly, I think that in terms of the positivity, what was important for me is that there's enough books out there that criticize India. Why don't we talk about books that just talk about the women of India, the people who actually live there, how they live with one another, how they react to one another, how castes are sort of it's part of the fabric of society. People here seem to think it's some grandiose thing that happens in India. And I recently read a post, an Instagram post, and I'm going to look into it further, that said caste was not invented by Indians. It was actually something that Europeans used to do for a long time with kings and queens and their royal families. It was all about caste, the kind of position that you had in society, and that when they came to India, when the British came to India and realized that there were job classifications for different people. There were job classifications for domestic workers. There was a job classification for priests, for warriors, and so on. They loved the idea of incorporating those castes and really highlighting them. And that was one of the major reasons why India ended up with a very solidified caste structure that they didn't used to have before. So anyway, I just want people to understand India in all of her complexity, not necessarily in just the critique of her through Western eyes. Okay, so let's see. Smriti?
Hi,
Sam.
Alka. Yeah, my name is Samriddhi. I like my name Samriddhi, but it's very difficult for North Americans to pronounce that. I've shortened it to Sam. But my question is, and without guessing your age, you look quite young and charming. But you did mention that, it was still 40 years you did not go back to India. And then there is this gap of 10 and a half years of, you publishing the book. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming you started late in your lifespan writing. My question is, uh, was it a benefit that you started so late, or do you
Yes.
think that? Okay, so I just want to kind of understand
Absolutely.
that perspective. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, I'm almost 70. And I think the whole
Wow.
idea of age is just a mental construct. And I
Mhm.
think that for some reason, women think that our life stops at, after the children go away, or our life stops after, we retire or whatever. But no, age is what helps you write better. It
Right.
helps you in no matter what passion you're pursuing later in life, because just imagine all the different jobs you've had, the different skills you've acquired, the ways in which you know how to work with different kinds of people. That is all extremely helpful to you. It's been helpful to me as a writer because I knew right away when I was starting to work with publishers, because I'd had my own business. I'd been in the advertising world for a long time. I'd worked for large corporations. So I know what it is to meet my deadlines. I know what it is to work with difficult people. I totally understand why it's important for me to give my best to whatever it is I am doing. I can't just rely on other people to do that for me, right? And I think that also because I come from marketing, I understood that I have to do as much work as my publisher to get my books out there. I have to have a social media presence. I have to be on that social media all the time. I
Wow.
have to respond to everybody like Sunny who writes to me and says, "Hey, I have a book club. I'd really like to have you, talk to us." So I think that age really helps a lot when you are pursuing a whole new passion later on in life. You have so many skills you don't even know you have until you start employing
Mhm.
them. It's really amazing. Okay, and then another thing is, there's nobody in my family who is a writer. Nobody. There's nobody who is a creative person. I got a job in advertising without having any connections at all. So I think also there's a force of personality in me that pushes me to do things that I haven't done before, that pushes me to expand and to, grow constantly. I'm constantly thinking of new things that I can do. So, and I think that I got to tell you, I think South Asian women have that in
Yeah.
spades. I think that we have this drive and this ability to keep growing and keep doing and doing our best at it. I don't think we ever give up unless people around us have given up on us, right? And
Yeah.
I am very lucky that I have a very supportive family in terms of like they're always calling me and saying, "Alko, great job, good for you. I saw you on this program or I saw you do this. That was really fantastic." And then, I have my dad who's always sending me YouTube videos and TED Talks that he thinks are going to help me with my next book. And then I have a husband who got me started writing. I
Yeah.
never would have thought I could become a writer had he not said, "I think you could do this."
Very nice. Very inspiring.
Sunil,
Hi.
Sunil's phone. Is
Yes.
it your phone or is it somebody else's phone?
No, I'm a girl with a guy's name.
Yeah.
I've never understood that. I was born in Canada, so I'm going to take this with a completely different tangent from everyone because it stuck with me when you talked about your mom. And I lost my parents, and one of the things about my Indian relatives, because I grew up here, I went to United Church. My parents were Hindu, so it's very confusing when I ask my Indian relatives, do you feel connected to your parents after? And they go, oh, no, no, once it's done, it's done. And I had to rely on my Italian Catholic husband to say, no, 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 they're still around. And so I'm very curious, even though this is a little bit off topic of everybody else's curiosity, mine is, did you feel more connected with your mom uh, when you finally completed it, or did you continue talking with her as you wrote it? Or are you more like my relatives? And that's a very personal question. You don't have to answer, but I was very curious. Like, did you feel? For me, I would have felt close to my mom if I had your skill to write about my mom. You know,
I think that when we started going to India, I had not lived with my mother since I was 18 years old and went away to college.
yeah,
So I had not spent such copious amounts of time with her. And until I started doing that and asking her about her life, I don't think I felt that close until then.
right,
So I think that made a big difference. It made a big difference for me to learn that she never wanted to leave India, that she loved India as much as she did. She'd never told me that before. I think because she didn't want to cross my father. I think that she was really forthcoming with a lot of information because by then she had divorced my father, which I think was also another brave move on her part. She was probably 62 or 63 when she divorced my dad. And she just blossomed. You know, after she left him, there was nobody telling her how to do things a certain way or what to do or take care of him. And she just blossomed. She sold one of the houses they had, took the money, came to live with closer to Brad and me. She bought her own condo. She bought, for the first time, she bought something all of her own.
Wow.
And she bought her own car. She had her own friends. My dad was always trying to like rope her in so that she would not have friends outside of his circle. She had her own friends. She did her own thing. So she was a different mother by the time I was in my 50s than she was when I was growing up, and not really asking her about a lot of things. But not even really appreciating how progressive she was, like getting me to school with birth control pills.
Wow.
Um,
That shocked
but
me kind of, yeah. That was
y-
that's in a good way. Shocked me like, wow,
yeah,
like, yeah.
yeah. And, I think that part of why she felt comfortable doing that is because she knew I wasn't a racy girl. I didn't wear short shorts and walk around in bikinis or, I mean, I wasn't, risque in any way. And she just thought, well, this girl will make good decisions if I give her the tools to make those decisions. So, and I think, I mean, in my choice of partner, my husband and I have been married now for 30 years. I chose the right guy for me. And that was really important. I wasn't married until I was 37,
Wow.
because I wasn't in a hurry to get married and I didn't want to just get married. That wasn't, that was something my mother instilled in me. She said, don't just get married to get married, get married because you found somebody you really want to spend your life with. Um, so so anyway, I think I've forgotten your original question.
When you took 10 years then to write, and it started off by almost like to me an homage or tribute to your mom and
Yes.
honor, did you continue to feel connected even after? And sorry that you passed away, but did you
Yeah.
feel connected still?
Yeah, I think I felt a lot more connected to her after writing the books. And like even in this next book, I am taking a bit of her life. Her life, I think, was so fascinating. One of the things she told me in Jaipur is that she spent a lot of her school years, especially her teenage school years, in Agra with her grandparents. And her parents had five other kids, much younger, that they were traipsing around all over Rajasthan. My grandfather was a traveling magistrate, and they never let him stay in any one city for longer than 2 years because, they're afraid of bribes and, people
Oh,
asking for favors.
wow.
And so he was always moving around. So he took his two eldest kids, my mother and her brother, and they sent them off to the grandparents in Agra. So my mother was raised by the grandparents. Now, the father would send the grandparents a monthly draft to take care of his two children, to feed them, to send them to the school, and all of that. My grandparents would take that draft, and for the first couple of days of the month, they would hold a huge party for all of their friends and neighbors because they wanted to come off like big people. And so my mom said, and my brother and I would be starving for the rest of the month because there was no more money left. They had like used up the whole draft. And I thought, man, that is really fascinating. So I used that as part of the family construct of this fifth book. So I think spending time with my mother was really interesting to me because I think I understood a lot of the ways in which she was so frugal.
Mhm.
I understood why she felt about things the way that she did. I understood really how repressed she felt in her marriage, learning more and more about that. A lot of people think that somehow arranged marriages If you have an arranged marriage, it's just automatically happy. And what I have found over the years, or what I have seen over the years, they have just about as much chance at happiness as a love marriage does. Unless you're turning a blind eye to a lot of things. Yeah.
That was great. That was like, first of all, you're a beautiful person inside and out. So I can only imagine your mother was like like you just carry her essence. Like I hope you keep writing and continue. I hope you keep putting your mother in the next books. Yeah.
I will. I'll always have her in there in some way.
Thank you.
Okay, Ruhi.
Hi, I think it is.
Yeah, I can hear you. Oh, wait. You went out again.
Okay,
There,
now.
you're back. Yeah.
Sorry. First of all, it's so nice to have you, and I think all my questions got answered with all these conversations that's going on. Um, I had too many questions about Lakshmi too, but you explained so beautifully about how it came up and how you related with your mother and everything. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to read the Bombay book, 6 Days in Bombay, because
Oh,
I'm from
yeah.
Bombay. So I want to know how you have kind of got into all the storytelling. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and then now I just finished reading Secrets of Jaipur, the Malik book. Bonita gave me all these books and she said, read these. So I'm reading them now. uh, Super excited about the third one because, yeah, they were awesome books. And then looking forward to the Bombay book also. Sorry, I had too many questions, but they got answered. So I just wanted to say
It's okay.
thank you so much.
I'll tell you a little bit about, 6 Days in Bombay came
Yeah.
about because I was in Delhi in 2019 and I went to the National Gallery of Modern Art. My bachelor's is actually in art history. And that was another thing that, my mother supported me in getting an art history degree, even though my father said, well, that's not going to get you a job. And so, but, I just always liked art and art history and architecture and all of that. So I go to museums wherever I am in the world. I'll always go visit museums. And I saw all these paintings by Amrita Shergill that I really loved. I just thought, oh my gosh, why have I never heard of her? I should have heard of her also. And she should be part of the school curriculums whenever people study her or study art. And so when I finally had an opportunity to write the next book and my agent had sold it, I thought, well, I'm going to write about a woman who is very similar to Amrita in the 1930s, just like Amrita lived. And I'm going to make sure that this woman has a chance to show us how powerful she could be living her own life. Amrita was very much her own person, both in her painting as well as in her family life. She made whatever decisions she wanted. She did not listen to her family. She married whomever she wanted. She painted whatever she wanted, even though it wasn't considered okay for a woman to be painting those kinds of things. And I think that she deserves a place in our history books. And then I came to find out once the book was published, because it was published in 2025, that Mira Nair is putting out a movie this next year called Amri. And it is also based on Amrita Shergill. So that's going to be really cool. I just hope she becomes a household name. I think that she deserves to be a household name as much as Frida Kahlo or Georgia O'Keeffe or Mary Cassatt. Those are also women that we wouldn't have known a lot about unless females had said, hey, what about this woman?
Yeah, I related to so many things that you were talking about and dancing, of course. I'm a Bharatanatyam dancer, so I totally
Oh,
relate to what you were saying about how dancing is not, even now I don't know the current situation, but when I was dancing, even then that was even like in 1980s and 1990s, and even then it was not considered,
yes,
as popular as like people from good families dancing and all that
yes.
stuff.
And
Yeah,
I have heard, yeah, and I've heard from women who used to dance
yeah.
before they got married, but their husbands, after they got married, said, no, you're not allowed to do this.
Well, my husband didn't, but my in-laws for sure were not very happy, I can say
Oh,
that. So yeah, I relate that. But
And
yeah,
what's interesting is they are upholding a British um,
yeah.
you know, rule. They're not upholding an Indian rule. They're upholding a British rule, which if they knew that, they probably wouldn't say, to you, don't do that. But I think it's
But my parents loved it. My dad absolutely wanted us to be dancers. My dad was a lawyer. It's not like they didn't come from good families. But
sure.
I think it's just family to family how they think about it. The
Yeah.
perspective changes. But yeah, I'm excited to read the Bombay book for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I have another
Okay.
question for you,
Yes.
Alka. So I don't know whether we have time. Sunny, please
Yeah.
stop me if we don't. Okay.
It's up
So
to
my
us.
question is,
Yeah, go ahead, son.
Alka, okay. So it's a trilogy that you have, but what is your like style of writing? Did it get, the subsequent book got shaped by the feedback that you were getting for the previous book? Uh, or is it that something which was always in your head and you said that, no, I will just go by what I have thought about it? Or did you shape it in the process as well?
Okay. Here's the funny thing. If you're writing, try to see if you can write a series because publishers love series. Now, I did not know this when I first started writing. So remember that when I was writing The Henna Artist all of those years, my agent had me cut all of this material out of The Henna Artist, things that I had worked on and worked on and worked on. They were scenes that involved Radha and Malik. So when I started writing A Secret Keeper of Jaipur, it was so easy for me to keep to use a lot of the material that I already had. All the backstory of Malik was already there. His future story was also already cut. And so I could use a lot of that had happened.
Uh,
The same thing with Radha's story. I knew exactly what was going to happen to Radha in the 1970s. She was going to meet this Parisian. She was going to become a perfumer. And I thought this is an excellent way to let people know that India is really where so many of the base ingredients of fragrances come from that they don't even know about. They think France invents everything, but no, all of these things come from India, and I think it's important for the world to acknowledge that. So I knew that I wanted to make that a big part of book number three, and then I had all these scenes about Radha's backstory that could also go in The Perfumist of Paris. So the two sequels actually were extensions of things I had already written. So
Written.
those became really easy, and they only came about one by one, not through any mastermind of my own. I started calling them a trilogy because I thought that would be easier to refer to all three books. My editor said, "Stop calling it a trilogy because that means that it'll never be more than that." And I said, well, yeah, but Star Wars goes on and has so many prequels and so many sequels, and I think it's going to be okay. So actually, the sixth book that I'm writing currently is going back to the characters of the trilogy, and it's going to have all the same characters in 1980. So I think I could actually, keep this going for a really long time because there's
You
always
are a
so many
marketer.
stories. Yeah,
You are a
yeah, but
marketer.
there's
That experience
also
comes in handy. Yeah. You can
there's
market your sixth book in the trilogy as well.
There you go. Yeah. And I'm really excited to be back with those characters again because it's fun for me. It's almost like there's a secret family living in my head.
Mm, nice.
Thank you so much, Alka. I want to read the comment that's in the chat. In case you missed it, I don't want you to miss it. One of them was by me. First one is so I stopped coloring my hair a year ago,
Oh,
exactly a year ago, because next week I'm going to be 50. So I
yay.
decided when I turned 49, a day before my birthday, I colored my hair and I said, this is it. This is the last time. And it's been
Okay.
a year. We're kind of all the way here now. So what I said is when you said that, age is just a number, I have a little sign in my bedroom. It says, age is like a hat. It's all in how you wear it, honey. Right? It's a little sign. And everyone keeps saying to me these days, oh, so you're turning 50. How do you feel? And I'm like, I don't feel a day over 35.
Right.
I'm
Right.
still as silly as I was when I was 10. I went to a networking event today and she was like talking about frolicking and connecting to your inner child. I'm an inner child healer. And she's like, has anyone climbed a tree? When was the last time you climbed a tree? And no one said anything. And I'm like, last week. Right? Because I am still a child at heart. So thank you for saying that age is just a number. And by the way, I love your style, and I see
Oh.
a lot of the glasses. I think my next glasses are going to look like that. I love it. Sharon said she had to leave, so she said, "Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been a treat. Not many people have been able to inspire me and move me to want to do big things. Love your energy and personality."
Oh.
So I just wanted to let you know she had to go. And then Sunil put a comment, "Love your story behind it, and thank you for your time and sharing such beautiful personal details. Your mother sounded truly amazing and has gifted you with independence. Love your
Oh.
jewelry and style too."
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah,
Well,
so
before I go, can I do a screenshot of all of us?
sure. I already did a couple. I'll send them to you, but please. So I did one
Yay.
with everyone because now Sharon is left. But please, please, yeah, do it. I
Okay.
don't have my book with me. I forgot to bring it. Oh.
That's okay. Sunil has a copy. Look at
There
that. She's
you
gonna
go.
hold it.
She's
Yay.
prepared. But it's
Okay.
blurred, Sunil, so you might have to bring it like there, there,
Yeah.
there.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. One,
Um,
two.
sorry,
Oh,
is that
oh,
There.
good?
Bonita has.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. She's got her
Oh,
copy
yes,
too.
I got
Okay.
my book.
And Juanita got it.
Okay.
Sorry.
One, two, three. Yay. Perfect. Thank you so much.
So I
Thank
do,
you.
if you have 2 minutes, I do have a question.
Sure.
So the movie, is that going to be like a big commercial Bollywood movie, or is it a more of a, what can you share?
So it is not a Bollywood movie.
Okay.
The problem with Bollywood movies is they don't get global distribution always.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important to go through Hollywood if you want global distribution, which is what I
Oh,
wanted.
okay.
So it is an independent venture from Hollywood. And it is going to, of course, star Frida Pinto as Lakshmi. And then it's hopefully going to be up for jury prizes as an independent film. And they've got a female writer-director involved, which I'm really excited about. It's the same writer-director who did Girls Will Be Girls. I don't know if you guys saw that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so, oh, good. Sam, you've seen it. Okay, all right. And let's see, what else can I tell you about it? Frida wants to have it start production not this coming fall, but the fall after that. So hopefully we'll get almost everything started then. And then I'll be able to go to Jaipur and watch it being filmed. That would be really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And as I was reading your introduction and I was thinking about the movie, I thought, okay, if it's a big Bollywood, then Alia Bhatt. But if it is more of an independent, then Frida Pinto. I literally in my mindset, I said, who would be?
Wow.
And I thought of Frida Pinto. So that's amazing. Thank you once again so, so much for taking the time. It was just amazing to hear the story. I
Oh,
loved every part of it. I didn't mention this part, your whole story about your mom. So I lost my mother when I was only 14 years old. And
oh,
back then in India, there was no grief counseling. No one even talked to us about this. So
oh,
30 years later, at 44, I started healing from that. I finally grieved. I finally healed. And as you mentioned that you feel your mother, finally I've come to a point, I feel her all the time around me. I feel connected to
oh,
her. I feel her energy. Whenever I'm doing something big, something that comes from my heart, I feel her presence. So
wow.
yeah. And we all have this, you have your writing that brought you close to your mom. I have my work that I do. I think that's what connected me to my mom. And really love that Lakshmi was based on your mom. I didn't know that. So this was so inspiring, and it's inspiring me to do even bigger things. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh.
Thank
Oh, I'm so glad. That is wonderful. That is such music to my ears when people say this has inspired me to do amazing things that I didn't know were going to be possible. Because for some reason, it's like it's okay for men to always do that, but somehow we women are taught to be a lot smaller than we actually are. We are so big in our capacity, to be great. We are so big. All right, guys.
All right.
Have a
And on
great
that
You.
note,
evening.
thank you, thank you, thank you.